Hello guys, what's up? Sunday. Damn, I went out last night. I'm giving up drinking. I've just had enough. The mornings, I think the nights are fine, but the mornings suck. It's like, it's only taken like 2 or 3 margaritas, and I've just, I really can't take it. I just can't take it. Well, anyways, you guys, welcome. My name is Rick. Bringing you truth from down in Key West, Florida. What I have been doing mostly with my time, besides working, besides that, actually, that's not what I've been doing. But what I've been doing is uncovering interesting knowledge from our Bible, the hidden side of what you call the spirit of the text. And we find that, I've also shown that it's inside, an old text of, the Trojan horse. Of course, there's a formula involved. And, of course, whenever I'm talking about this to people, they say, oh, you're just making all this up. Or, you can make it fit into anything, And I say, well, not really. It's like a formula. If there's the way of writing things, put a pronoun here, and an adverb here, and a noun, and a whatever, I certainly did not do well in English, ever. I think in order to pass one time, because I was running out of different choices, I took yearbook, and that was fun, because I got to be an artist in their place. At least, drawing up things and, that's my first bit of doing any kind of artwork and stuff. But no, I really sucked in that. So, to see me working and doing this kind of business right now just flipped my old English teachers out, But I took a course in developmental reading and learned to read and to answer things and to get to the heart of stuff, I've been plagued with this dyslexia, which in some ways keeps numbers flipping around, so I'm awful in math as well, and spelling, if you had a choice between this or that, oh my God, I'm going to get this one, even where I come from, the state of Missouri. Oh, you're not from Missouri, because if you were from Missouri, they would say Missouri. And I was, okay, right, I'm lying, Yeah, I'm making it all up. Well, what I'm doing is, I'm tying all the religious ideals together. Whereas right now, I've mentioned a couple of them. I've also talked about, taking apart individual parables and allegories, stories of Moses, and of course Revelations. And discovering some very interesting details as to what they are talking about. Knowing that there's this topside surface way of reading a Bible, and there is an inside way of reading the Bible that involves listening to hear certain clues and seeing things to see certain clues, and then to using your heart in a way of to understand this. And when people can do that, and that's what I have done, I have crossed into that zone fairly recently, where it's a lot easier. But I have been learning. I had always had I knew what this meant, and I knew what that meant, and so I just wasn't able to put it all together. But there's a format to it, and they call it dark language. And dark language means it's hidden. And it's things that we wouldn't know. If you were in the 30s and the flappers and all this, they had jargon that if they started flopping around with it now, remember like when in the 50s, they say you're square and this and that, mothers and fathers felt separated from their children. What are they talking about? And then, and then the hippie generation, and what's cool, and stuff. And nowadays people are talking whack, that's real, boss. And they even use things that are kind of on the opposite sides of things, oh man, that's really the shit, and so if you were to take that language and slang that seems to only be, a particular time of life, you can't remember things, you don't know what they really mean. But in these Bibles, they write about things and things that don't change. They have used markers on the ground that haven't changed, so you can get an idea of north, south, east, and west, so that you can get a directional idea from this. But they're mostly always they're all saying the same thing. And so what I wanted to touch on today was one of the oldest writings that have been found are Sanskrit writings, and these are from India. And you also are going to have to understand, or I'll remind you of the number system that we have, all right, that things are written by, where in today's story the number 7 comes in a whole lot, which is the 7 chakras. The number 11 comes in to play a lot of times. It's number 2, all right. Let's see. There's about fruit. Krishna talks about the 3 different kinds of fruit that are food that you should be eating as your substance, and it said it should be juicy, number 1. Number 2, it should be nourishing, and it should be agreeable. And it's interesting because that's not really telling you what kind of food you're going to eat. But that word juicy is very interesting because that happens to be the place in the tree later on that you're looking for. This is juicy spot in the tree. All right, so I want to let you have that. But and a little history to it is that this is not about organized religion. All right, yeah, it's they call it the holy books of India, but they are not. Really along those lines, they would say themselves that this predates what they would call some kind of an organized religion. It looks here, it says it's 500 years before Christ, it's 1,000 years before Muhammad, and 2,000 years before even Hinduism itself has been created. So you'll see here that when I listened to this gal tell her story, and she was on TED, so she did a synopsis of things, and I'm doing a synopsis of hers. But what she was getting at was that she was talking about, she was reading it as a topic, bringing in this, her thought of, this is what it means. And she was getting claps from her Hindu audiences. So, when it talks about this was the food that she wants, the food that you don't want, the ones that she can do, it says, denying themselves food. That's number 1. That means, fasting. Fasting is a sin, all right? Sin to the body. And number 2 is the denying themselves. Being taught confusing self-torture with faith and devotions. Truly they're foolish. They chose wrong. This idea of food. So what they said this here, they said this was, don't lose your mind, lose your diet. They were saying that denying themselves proper food and water has something to do with going on a diet, all right? And confusing self-torture by initiating or believing in confusing self-torture with faith and devotion. They were looking at that as exercise, so you're not supposed to really diet or exercise, I hope you understand what I'm hearing whenever I hear that. It's just telling you the different sides that you could feed from. There again is the inside, which is the juicy fruit side, and then there's the outside, which is, bringing on something like devotion. Now remember, this is before religion, all right? Very, very much before. All right, so before what we would consider religion. So, pagan, you want to say this is pagan because their God is inside of them. That's what they're talking about. But that's what the book is saying. It's not what the religion is doing, all right? So remember, my beef is that the inside of the book always says the same stuff, but the outside of the book says something totally different. So this is a social studies book that they give to everyone to read, so everyone in their world is exposed to this literature, but they are not exposed to what it means, all right? So we got a little bit of the history out of the way, but basically what it's about, it's a book that they can say this here, that it's a book about the physical and the metaphysical, what is seen and unseen. We got the Mahamantra, which is the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita. And I've been learning how to say it correctly. It's a great war against cousins, all right? And they call this will be the one I mess up on. It's a holy, it's called, I looked it up. It means the holy place, and it's the Kurshkastra. We'll say Kurshkastra War. All right, that's what it's talking about. All right. Now, in reality, what it is they're fighting against cousins. So again, we're looking at something that this is in the family. Remember, we're all one in here when it comes down to family. Now, what's really interesting is you got the Pandavas, which are the righteous and the noble and the upright. These are the 5 sons. All right, so the 5 again is about our body, and all 5 sons are married to the same woman. That's pretty interesting right off the bat. Okay, so the Kauravas or the Kauravas is what we say, are not the righteous and the religious or anything like that. They have lived. There's the Pandavas. There's 7 divisions, 7 really strong divisions. All right, and I think in the Kauravas you have 11 divisions. Okay, 11. There's your 2. That's the human itself, the body. That's what 2 is, God's creation. All right. It has 100 brothers. Okay, that means 1. All right. So all of those are representing the. This is representing you, but this is the good guys and the bad guys. All right. And these are the princes. We got the Pandavas. The Pandavas. Now, how they chose this in the story is that Krishna was asleep. All right, and one of the guys, the guys from the Kauravas, the other guy, one of their men, who thinks himself equal to Krishna, found him asleep and sat at the seat at his head. All right. And now, this other guy, this Arjuna guy, came in a little late. And so he, being a devotee of Krishna, he sat at his feet and waited. Now, this is the sitting position. This is where he's supposed to be. All right? And waited for him to wake up. Now, the whole idea is that really both of these things came into town. Krishna, these are all one person. All right? And waited for Krishna to arise. And when he rose up, he saw this... what's this guy? Arjuna. I'm going to just say, let's just call him, what is his name? Arjuna. We'll just call him Arjuna. His real name. Now, what he is, and that means he gets to say his piece first. The other guy thinks that Arjuna is just a complete idiot, But anyways, what happens is this Prince Arjuna, he's one of the guys that's got to lead this war. And it's his 5 brothers. He is known as the greatest archer in the world. All right. So archers taking your bow and you're aiming upwards with this. Okay. And he has Krishna is his designated chariot driver. Okay. So if you want to think about the sun being hauled through the air by a chariot, and he's the chariot guy. This is how you do your transporting. That Krishna is the one. We have to use Christ. Remember, Christ is the Christos. We use the oil in the body because the skin and the blood is not allowed over there. That's representing, the human flesh side. So the only thing in there is this. It's basically some kind of an oil that runs up and down the spine. All right. So Krishna and Christ are the same, and so this is the weave. If not the way it reads, okay. So the way the numbers goes is I have this written up just so, and it is absolutely crazy. All right, my dyslexia. If you could read my notes, you'd say, "Oh my God, it must be crazy." So what happens is there's this all of a sudden this Prince Arjuna just loses his nerve. And he's considering he has to go and destroy half the family, half the people that he knows, and it just, he falls in despair, and and he's just sick with it, and so he lays down his arms, and he asks Krishna for advice. Okay, so he laid down his arms. This is to understand that, he's going under. This is the idea of going into meditation. He's going to talk to Krishna. All right, and now for a good long part of the story, Krishna is telling him this is going to happen like this, and and he says, and this is going to happen, and this may happen, and then what about this, and goes through this long, drawn out. But really, what it is because he's going under the sea, and he's crawling up that ladder. All right, and he finally gets to the end of it, and he says, you know what? If you don't do this, if you do not stand up, take up an arrow, take up your your bow against this, you're not going to be doing yourself any favor whatsoever. What does it say? It says in this conversation, he says why you should take up this bow. He says you'd be failing in his duties as a warrior, a king, a leader of men, and an upholder of truth and justice. And it says here, after all the advice, after all of this, he's up there on the sixth ladder. He says, it's still your choice. You can go into battle or not. It's your choice. Of course, now, in this particular part of the story, the lady's telling us that, hey, now, this is how you're supposed to be a good friend. You give him all the good advice, but you let it be his decision. But in reality, this is really up to you. The power was told by Moses that you put your hand in here and pull it out, and it was death. And he freaked out. He says, now put it back in and pull it back out, and it was back again. So it shows you have control. This is the whole idea, that you have control over this if you want to or not. But it will tell you that, that in order to maintain this balance on earth, to keep things in, and that's a little later on in here, is that you need to every now and then go up there and, balance stuff out. So it says, so it's talking, then it goes into talking about your family members, and so it talks about, you're supposed to identify them, and your families, this would be your brothers and your sisters and your stepsisters and your cousins and all these things, and these are all different facets of you that make you who you are. I want you to name them, want you to identify them, want you to separate them. Remember, this isn't a sequence of things when things are about to be destroyed or something like that, It says, let's see here, as it keeps going, it says, it starts to give advice. It says that this is like to loosen things up. It says there are 1 million different routes to nirvana, and no one greater than the other. This makes it seem as if this is where she says, this is where we got all our different idols from, she says. But that's not the truth. I'll tell you this later on, because the roots of nirvana in their tree is in heaven. The tree is growing backwards in this story. And I'll tell you this later on, so I want you to lend an ear to this later on. All right? And a million is actually one. Remember. Well, I'm glad there's not 1 million different religions on earth. There may be, but oh God, But anyways, this idea is because there's another point that the soul's going to go through several lifetimes. It talks about, so this is where you're supposed to have content, and it says, well, what? There's like 4 different worlds, or this says, there's like different universes or different worldly things that you can do. And so this is bringing up the number 4, all right? And it says, you want to find something that you like to do, all right? But in reality, what this is bringing up the fourfold nature of man. So one is, does it work? Am I doing this yet? Nope, uh-oh. It says universe, to give back. He says, oh, all right, we're supposed to be thinking, number 5 here is about the universe, how much the wonderful things that were given to us, the sun in the sky and the moon and the stars and all of these things. And the way to pay back would be to, in order to pay back is to do everything with an attitude of gratitude. And this will keep and give and take an ancient cycle of give and take. It'll keep it in motion, and it keeps the world from falling apart and descending into chaos. That's basically the lesson of this, is to, the world is actually you, but if you are taking this on the outside, that you're never going inside and cleaning out, so the whole world is going into chaos, so this is kind of telling in a lot of ways. But because even their religion itself does not go inside and see this as the metaphysical side of things, it says, so what you're looking for, if you are, dependent and you're going to be disciplined to do this, what you'll find is you'll turn into the ideal human. And the ideal human is to see the world as it really is. And when you see the world as it really is, that's like being able to read this stuff and understand it, because all of a sudden your eyes are open. And it's always good to see this. It's always good to be a part of this. All right? I think we're flowing along pretty good. Now, there's like 700 verses in the Gita itself, so that's 7 is going to be, and this is scripted. This is ancient stuff. But this is supposed to be, you're only supposed to remember just need the 7. There are 700 verses, but this is showing you something about this Kundalini information of raising your consciousness. And so what we get out of that, we get 18 chapters. 8, that makes 9. The first 10 chapters is telling you all these things about Krishna and all this, and then the next 7 chapters is about the Mahabharata, about the thing itself, the war. And the war goes on for, what does it say? I think it goes on for like, maybe it's going to show up over here, 18 days. Okay, 18 days is 9, so it's another consciousness idea. 9 is just after completion. It's the higher conscious. It's the new you, and this is come about by discipline, hard work, commitment, and determination. All right, and see, what do we get from that? We've already done the food. 9, 10. Here it is. 10. The food is. This is the way it works. So what you got to have is the juicy fruit, the nourish. It's got to be nourishing and agreeable. And the agreeable means yes. Do you understand that? Yes, it's like the whole idea of, the sun in the sky going up and down. It's also, yes, agreeable. And Jesus, the word Yesu, or something like that. I may get that last one messed up, but the idea is, it's all around this yes, all right? And yes is developed, believe it or not, by the sun and sky, going up and down. And that's that, and it tells you the worst thing to do is to not feed and water the body, and to take on thoughts and beliefs of faith and devotion. Believe it or not, that's what it says. So 11. So we get down into 12. This is where it talks about the tree. It's all centered around this tree now. He's talking about this tree. And the way it's physically made up here, and I've drawn it, is we have the earth down below, and we have the tree trunk growing in the middle, with the roots going into heaven, and the trunks of the tree laying on the top of earth and going down inside of earth. So what that signifies is that we're this great idea that we believe that we're getting our source from the earth. All right, whereas we are not. They call it the lower fruit, and again, this is our idea of taking on the lower notion, going from mother and father to man and wife. All right, taking on the lower fruit, the lower idea, the lower aspects of life, which is our desires and our emotions. Aside from that, what you were supposed to do is focus then on the trunk of the tree. The trunk is where you go. It's the great trunk, and the trees. It says, keep your eye on the trunk, and when you find it, hold on tight. And this is really beautiful, wonderful wording. All right, and it just goes to show that the roots the 1,000 roots. This is the 1,000 petals. Do you understand what I'm talking about? The millions, the crown chakra. That's the roots, and no one is greater than the other up there. All right, but no one, and they're all ones. This is the top chakra. You know, whenever they have 11, 11 is the 2. That's you. All right. They're talking a lot about 7, so they're actually using the regular chakra system in this. Okay, which is the 7 nerve centers. Okay, they can get mixed up sometimes with 11, which could be the 11 things as well. 11, it's just a different way, the Kabbalah. Whereas 12 would be the one that you would, when you jumped over the fence, would be number 12. That's 2 and 3. That's you joining with God. All right. So whether or not there'd be a real 11 or what have you. All right. So that's your tree. All right. We have 13. Here's your worlds. You have if you want to be in deep thought and in isolation. Of course, they're talking about these being jobs on earth that you should take up. And deep thought and isolation is actually meaning your spiritual side. That's the east. That's your nature, the fourfold nature of man. Remember, the 4 is the world. So they're talking about worlds. They're talking about your nature, the things that you need to get a hold of. All right, so that you can be that ideal human. All right, so you want the deep thoughts and in isolation. You know, everything is in moderation. So you should do all of these, which is the east, the spiritual side. Heat. We want to be in the heat of battle, the dust and the fever. All right, now that's your emotions. You could just tell that right off the bat. That's the north. If your desire is in the marketplace, buying and selling and doing all this, you can tell right off the bat. That's the intellect side. That's the west. And or if you just want to be a cog in the wheel, all right. That's as simple as that. That's you. That's your physical nature. All right, just somebody in the world, just another cog in the wheel, and that's of course the south, and that's your physical nature. All right, and then it goes on to talk about karma. It talks about the consequences of karma, and that intent actually is important. You know how they say that intent is the road leading to hell? You know, they're trying to trick you in every way, but intention is almost everything. Even if it doesn't make it, I intended to do that. I wanted to do that. Even if I wanted to go and see my mom or something like that and I didn't, you know, I really wanted to. You know, it's the idea. You know, but if you never wanted to, then, you know, hell, bells, shit, you know. You know, I really don't want to go and see my mom just yet, but I do in some ways. So, it's searching for the mind is the talk of, this is about the middle ground, the talk of, you know, don't worry when things get too bad, and this is their second coming, all right? When it gets bad, when the world gets too far on one side, a savior will be born among you, will be brought out from among you to save things, all right? And this is the Jesus second coming, this idea that, you know, if you would recognize this as meditation, that you're the one that sets the Savior free. All right? That's number 14. Of course, that says this is about the number 18. There's 18 books. 8 means the number 9. So we have, there's 18 books of the Mahamantra. There are 18 chapters in the Bhagavad Gita. There were 18 the war fought over. The war itself was 18 days. And number, I don't know what that one is, the 15. Where do we go to next? What's next? Are we about done? Did we do it? I think we did it. All right, so, damn. I wanted to see, this is a very ancient story that they read, that children read in their school, about an ancient battle between the 5 brothers. And let's see if there's any more interesting facts in here. The combined armies between both of the guys was 3.94 million. That comes to the number 16, and of course that adds up to 7. It's kind of fun. I like the idea that, that the 5 sons were all married to the same woman. See, these are clues. But then, if you think that that's just normal behavior, then you're not doing anything about the commandment. The commandment says not to have more than one. But then the party itself and the stories that they go on, how many different wives was offered up to all these other guys? How many to buy their wives in the Bhagavad? So there's a whole mess of knowing going down. But I was hoping that I could show you that one of the basics beginnings to the Krishna faith, the faith of Hinduism, is the basis for many things. It's the basis for Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. They all contain the very same information. Islam by chance only because they stole shit, alright? Instead, it's not well put together. It's just my findings on it is that, no. All of these texts can, if you had the ear for it, you could hear it. You could hear it. And you can understand it the way I do. You can just, anytime you hear these stories, this also matched up with Gilgamesh and stuff, But people get mad because I take the pain and blood and the real life out of these stories. I don't give a fuck you get pissed off at me. Why? Because, is a piece of your childhood's been uprooted, and so what? People have been killed over this nonsense, I'm not going to give that any respect. Not one bit, so eat shit, if you have any trouble with this. Krishna is Christ, and there are all these stories that say that it's all inside of you. And all these stories are saying that if you want to have peace on earth, then you have to start off with peace of mind first. So, anyways, let's work on that. Let's work on that together. I love you guys. All right, that's the truth. This is the truth. This is God's honest truth. All right, best to you. Happy Sunday.